Hello and welcome back to this Wednesday on Crypt. Oh my God, we've got some more information about the banks running afraid, and I'm going to kick it off with a really cool clip. So let's just dive right in. Bam! This share is coming from Christopher Perkins, who is the president over at CoinFund, a large venture fund dealing in cryptocurrency. Christopher has been very active in the regulatory scene, and let's be real, the regulations, while I know it might not be your favorite, they are the biggest shift that is happening right now almost in the entire industry. But for regulations, I mean, we have been so held down under the Biden administration. So he shares this clip coming from the American Bankers Association that met very recently. Let's give it a little look.
So I think we're making great headway, actually, in demonstrating why this is an important issue. And this is not about relitigating something that's settled. This is about ensuring banks continue to be in a position to support their communities and power the economy. And a detriment to that would be allowing the likes of Coinbase or Kraken to pay interest on payment stablecoins. I mean, that just flies in the face, one, of the notion around a payment stablecoin, that it should be a means of payment and not a store of value. But two, this prohibition that Congress clearly set, that we already talked about not paying interest on these things. And so that I don't know, how do you feel, Jess? I mean, there's lots of good momentum here.
No, I totally agree. I feel like this is not an easy fight. It's a very well-resourced, group on the other side. Let's put it that way. But we have broken through. Again, we're not speaking just about, this isn't about what's good for banks. This is about what's good for communities. Banks take deposits and convert them into loans. That's what we do. And fewer deposits means fewer loans. And most members of Congress understand that that's not a good thing.
Now, this is a pretty fun take. We can see that they're already ruffled by the fact that stablecoins exist, and they're very much trying to emphasize that these are supposed to be a payments chain. But look, they're referring to the Genius Bill that says they shouldn't be able to offer yield. And their anger and their rage comes from the fact that Coinbase and Kraken, they kind of got around it by calling these rewards instead of yield. But let's look at the reality of the situation, which is that the yield-bearing stablecoin ecosystem, and let me pull up the reason why they're shaking, because this is the yield-bearing stablecoin ecosystem map. This is not including things that fall under the Genius Bill. The Genius Bill is very specifically talking about issuers like Circle and Tether, and what they do is they take $1, they buy treasuries with it, and they get some yield on that. Now, they're keeping that yield, and in fact, if it wasn't for the Genius Bill, they'd be able to share that. But now, that's just profit that's going into the company, and it's a bit nuts. When we add some of the programmatic capabilities of what you can do on blockchain, you can just see this wild landscape unfold. So I've talked about Syrup. This is Go on Aave. And again, Aave is an entire borrowing lending platform. Just like what the banks complained about, you can do everything permissionlessly on Aave. The only difference is in the banks, they are going to capture that value and retain it for themselves. Whereas here on Aave, it will flow back to holders. We, of course, have USDE that I've talked about, both SuperState and Ondo that are tapping into real-world assets RWAs, the Biddle Fund by Securitize, which is a large fund from BlackRock that's been put on chain. And while that initially didn't seem that fascinating to me, we are seeing things like USDE tap into the Biddle assets to create this delta neutral strategy that now pays a good 12% yield on holding this stable coin. Now, the risk here is if there's some sort of exchange blow up like FTX, for example, you could lose your assets. But for the most part, it's proven to be pretty darn safe so far. And we just saw this USDE asset be extremely stress tested about 2 Fridays ago. So you can see that there's just a ton, right? We have Denari here that is actually issuing stocks and allowing people to trade through permissionless blockchain layers. Again, all of this trading, whatever it is that they unlock, these protocols are generating revenue. And since they're protocols, they're not people, they can share the revenue with all of the asset holders. That is how you get these yield-bearing assets. And each one is taking a different approach. We have crypto-backed, we have lending aggregators, we have mixed strategies, we have delta neutral, and of course, the US Treasury-backed, which do fall under Genius and have to deal with some stuff. Now what's really interesting here is that the Fed meeting just went on this week, and apparently it was about 70% crypto oriented. So Waller signals Fed's shift towards embracing crypto, proposes skinny master account for payment innovators. Let's talk about a master account real quick. That is a bank's capacity to get money directly from the Fed. It is a direct connection so that the Fed can say, hey, we're making more money, and it goes right into a bank. This is what allows capital providers to have that liquidity to do the things they wanted. And what's really insane coming out here is just some of the statements. They're so bold. I wanted to send a message that this is a new era for the Federal Reserve and payments. The DeFi industry is not viewed with suspicion or scorn. Rather, today, you're welcomed in the conversation on the future of payments in the US and on our home field, something that would have been unimaginable a few years ago. And that's absolutely true. Remember, Elizabeth Warren is building an anti-crypto army. Look, distributed ledgers and crypto are increasingly being woven into the fabric of payments and the financial system. And this is just an absolutely wild statement. Of course, we see this backed up even further with this piece from the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. And for anyone who's been watching me consistently, they might recognize something that I spoke about before, which is this X402. And what they are discussing here is this Coinbase standard for the internet to accept digital payments. To understand how X402 works, keep in mind that the internet talks to your computer using codes. You're probably already familiar with one, 404 not found, right? If you hit a website and there's nothing there, which tells your browser the web page doesn't exist. Another code, 402 payment required, was included in the original internet standards, but left reserved for future use. In 2025, the future arrived with the launch of X402, the modern protocol that gives 402 real-world function. And they go on to say, here's how it works. When you request content, the website responds with a 402 payment required status code. The code attaches metadata that includes the exact price and where to send the payment. The smart wallet reads this and completes the transaction. The content is provided with no redirects, no typing in card numbers, and no friction. What are we looking at? Paying for anything on any website with a crypto wallet. That is the fundamentals going on here. And they expand it because this is the reality. Eventually, the protocol could crucially reshape how artificial intelligence works. Today's AI serves as a passive assistant, analyzing data, answering questions, and making recommendations. The next state, agentic AI, will take action on your behalf using the X402 protocol, aka your personal AI agent will be able to spend money for you. If you tell it to go out and gain you access to information, it will have some access to your account. And let's be real, when we start interacting with the internet in this capacity, it's just going to make it much more reasonable to start holding your cash in one of these many, many stable coins. I mean, why would I keep it in dollars? My bank account, my Chase savings account, offers very close to zero yield. That checking account is even worse. Again, SUSDE, which has already gone through amazing stress tests, is talking about 12%. 12%. That 12% could be what you live off of. I mean, look, this is the power of compound interest, is that the longer you hold and compound that 12%, the greater your chance of wealth is going to be. We are living in an inflationary world, and every time you receive a paycheck in dollars, it is worth less tomorrow than it's worth today. So we've got to be outrunning inflation. And this is what these bankers are talking about. This is where their concern sits, that they're salty, that yield is being found better autonomously on blockchain. This is a smoother experience. Let's be frank, the interface is just much more digitally native, right? This is the future for people that grow up on cell phones. And we are also seeing that the entire internet itself through X402 is being angled towards crypto compatibility. I mean, guys, look, if we're talking about a free market where we're competing just based off of the virtues of our applications, it's pretty clear that these blockchain-based applications are significantly easier to use. So with that being said, I think this is a fascinating shift from the many years that we had under Biden. We're hitting a real stride in redefining how banking works, how value transfer works. And of course, let's not forget, people can earn cryptocurrencies by playing their favorite video games, by participating in their favorite communities. In this digital world, if we want to take the metaverse into account, people will find their attention in specific pots, right? They will gravitate to the shit that interests them. And if we can earn rewards that don't just kind of sit in a centralized entity, right? Like V-Bucks, for example, on Fortnite, what if you could convert those to dollars? What if you could take your V-Bucks and convert it to SUSDE, and all those hundreds of hours of gameplay could actually earn you some 12% yield in savings account? We are looking at a foundationally different way that we interact with money, that we interact with the digital sphere. And like I always like to say, the metaverse is really just that veil between meat space and cyberspace and how easily you can cross it and activate it. And of course, with AI, we're just simply going to talk to things. We're going to prompt things. We're going to use hand gestures, what are called natural user interfaces. And we're just going to have our AI go out and get it. So this has been pretty fascinating to watch unfold. We are in major territory for this redefinition, for this flippening, and it's truly exciting. With that being said, the markets, they're not looking so great, so stay out of that leverage. And of course, give me a like and a sub if you find this interesting. I would appreciate it dearly. And as always, I'll see you tomorrow.